CNN News 18 exclusive that's been shared by Manoj Gupta. We're learning Umar's radicalization and operational role go all the way back to 2018, 2019. That's when it all began. The first exposure to radical sermons began around 2018-19 when he started consuming online content linked to Jaish-e-Mohammed. His Telegram group circulated the Ghazwa and the interpretations. He was mainly emphasizing India as the final battlefield. He was using quote verses, clerical speeches from radical Pakistani clerics. By 2023, Umar was the most ideologically hardened member of this group. And during group discussions, he repeatedly told others that Delhi was the nerve center of operation. The worrying part, viewers, of this entire terror module is that it came so very close to the political heart of the country, the national capital, Faridabad, where 2,900 kgs worth of explosive material was recovered by agencies, is just 45 kilometers from this very location. Further, we're learning as per these inputs that he, being Umar, was pushing the idea that a martyr act in the capital would have global visibility. All of this goes back to 2018, 2019. Anand Narasimhan joins us with more details. Umar Anand is one of the few players, but he seems to be one of those who held the key to this entire conspiracy as was being hatched, and it just isn't limited to the last few months. Goes back all the way to 2018-19, we're learning.
2018 is when he was, consuming these sermons online. But somewhere there is also this connection to Irfan, Maulvi Irfan, who was also present at that time in the Government Medical College in Srinagar. Umar was a student at that time. He got exposed to this Jaish paraphernalia via Irfan. There is a contact there. There is that establishes him also as part of this group. Perhaps the most silent but the most potent and ideologically far gone or radicalized members is Umar Nabi. Umar had started and deleted almost 17 channels, Telegram channels. And these channels were only pushing vitriolic material, very, very highly ideologically far right and Islamist in nature, and more importantly Jaish propaganda, which talked about Ghazwa-e-Hind and that Bharat or Hindustan was the last bastion that needed to be conquered or needed to be tamed. Now this is the Ghazwa-e-Hind is something that for many centuries this has been pushed. The first set of invaders who also came with this whole agenda of political Islam or Ghazwa-e-Hind to bring Hindustan and this region, geographical region, to heal by the dint of the sword, because that was what was ordained. Now this is where this whole thought process stands. But then educated individuals today who are supposed to be progressive and moderate in their thinking were also drawn towards this kind of vitriol, and Umar Nabi subscribed to this. He was actually pushing, and he was also he was the one who actually volunteered and said that the attacks have to be fidain. They have to have such a sensation that globally it is noticed, and then it becomes a reason. Now these are all things which are again pushed by these ideological masterminds and radical those who radicalize such youngsters to say that whatever you do, you need to create such a dhamaka that it becomes a global headline, because that then turns the spotlight to the so-called quote-unquote cause. But Umar Nabi was somebody who was pushing for this, and he perhaps also volunteered to be one of the people who will do this. Now there are two versions, and this is now subject to confirmation, but the investigators are probing both angles. Was the 10/11 bombing a fidain attack as planned by Umar Nabi, although it was done in a bit of a desperation and his plans were pushed because he realized that once the Faridabad module was busted and the cops got there, they would be hot on his heels. The Jammu and Kashmir had also tweeted saying you can run but you can't hide, and had perhaps the Haryana police not gone to town with this huge cache of arms till the time they also roped in Umar Nabi, who was still at large, but his presence had been established in Faridabad and Delhi NCR. Maybe this act of haste would not have happened, could have been avoided. That's one perspective. But the other part is that it is such a huge that he was pushed into an act of desperation and his hand was called and he couldn't go into hiding. Now he didn't want to go into hiding. He had explosives, he had a car, Perhaps they were trying to just set off the car at that parking lot and not be a Fidayeen attack, and that's why that car was kept there for about 3.5 hours, but it didn't go off, and that's because perhaps he was amateur, there was no practice, and it was done in a haste. He takes out the car, and at the end then sets off the timer at a time when he realized that there was nothing else that he could do. So the angle of it being a Fidayeen strike by Umar Nabi has not yet been ruled out. It is a possibility, but the fact is that Umar Nabi was the most silent in this group, but he was the most radicalized, and he was the one who was pushing for suicide car bomb attacks.
Also makes the picture slightly clearer, isn't it, Anand? The fact that Lal Killa, Red Fort, was the intended target. That this was perhaps a time detonator for those 3.5 hours. He was patiently waiting here in the parking lot behind me for a reason.
It's possible. Red Fort is iconic. Red Fort is from where the Prime Minister delivers the speech, where the tricolour was unfurled. It's a symbol for Bharat's independence, and also where the Independence Day celebrations are conducted, and the Prime Minister delivers the Independence Day speech. And Red Fort, any attack in and around the Red Fort would also be symbolic, that you capture the Red Fort, you damage the Red Fort, do something there, and it's this iconic representation of the political capital of the country, and from where perhaps the politics begins and perhaps governance begins symbolically. But and that's why Red Fort was targeted. It is also a densely populated area, so a car bomb or a sticky bomb in this region could have also caused large-scale destruction, and of course got national and international media attention. So he had planned this. Let's not forget that he was no imbecile. He was an educated person. He was a smart guy, but a white-collar terrorist, so who had a sharp mind too, pushed to desperation, but he knew exactly where he wanted to go to set off this bomb. And something which we've been over the case of investigation very clear, that Maulvi Irfan to Umar Nabi to Shaheen and Muzammil and Adil, they were all very clear that they wanted to conduct these attacks at critical points which are of importance to Bharat, and also to the Sanatan Prathas or to Hindu roots. And that's where they were choosing these targets. We're getting some of those details too. And Red Fort politically and also as a symbol for Bharat was important, and one of these bombs had to go there, and that's why he chose this. But he was also on the run. He was also desperate. He also knew that it was just a matter of time that the sleuths and the authorities, the forces, would close in on him and he would be caught. And so he decided to go ahead and commit this act in haste.
Oh yes, yeah. MBBA holders, people who are trusted more often than not for saving people's lives, actually have blood on their hands today. That's the worrying picture in all of this. But thank you, Anand, for joining us with those details. We're at the Red Fort. We'll keep getting you minute by minute details trickling in. Heading into a very short break. We'll be right back.